Hi Papercrafters! Welcome to another Design with Jo video. I'm Joanne Rogers, a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in Central Alberta, Canada, and I've been designing with you in mind since 1999. Today I want to share a fun and cool project with you, one that's got lots of glitter and glam to it, and I'm hoping that you can see a lot of the play of light on the metallics that we have here. So I'm using a stamp that's just about to be retired. It's the marbled background stamp. It is one of my all-time favorite stamp sets, and it's one that's going to stay in my stash. And I wanted to make sure that I shared the how-to on this project with you before it retires for good. So here's what you're going to need. You're going to need your Versamark stamp pad. You're going to need the stamp itself. You're going to need a piece of scratch paper. And then you're going to need your card parts. And this is a 5.5 by 8.5 piece of black, scored at 4 1/4. Another piece of black, and this piece is 4 by 5 1/4 inches. And then you need some copper pieces. So we need a piece of copper that is 1 7/8 by 4 1/8, and one that is 1 by 5. Before you get started, you're going to want to decide what your 3 colors of embossing powder are going to be. And you don't have to have 3, but I like the mix of the 3 different metallics that we have. So I've got silver, gold, and copper embossing powder that I'm going to use today. I've also tried this with white and black, and it is very cool looking as well. So first of all, you're going to take your Versamark pad and you're going to turn your stamp upside down and you're going to pat your Versamark all over. So I'm going to lay it down close to the top and I'm going to hold it there and then just let it go. And when I do that, I know it's not going to move anywhere. I'm going to take my piece of scratch paper and place it right over top, and then I'm just going to rub around and press everywhere. So just give it a really good amount. Use a little bit of your Popeye strength there and make sure you have got it inked up all the way around. And then you take your paper off and you're going to pick up just one end. You want to be a little bit careful here that you're not sticking your hand all the way around the side, because it will remove some of that, or it will blur it. Maybe it won't remove it, but it will blur some of the image you already have. I'm going to pull in my embossing powders. And I've got silver I'm going to start with first, and I'm just going to put it on a few different places. So just hold the sides. If you want to use a pair of tweezers to hold your piece, you can do that too. I don't do that very often, but it might help. Then I'm going to go into my gold, and where I didn't have silver, I'm going to place that over top. Maybe put another little bit up here. And you can decide where you want yours. And then the last color is going to be my copper. And I keep my embossing powders in these just plastic containers I got from the dollar store. And it seems to work really well for me. It makes them fairly tidy, and I don't have to constantly unscrew the top. So I'm just putting copper around all the outside edges. And I'm also going to put some in here at the bottom. So just make sure you have the entire piece filled with embossing powder. And if you want to go back over, so I see that I'm missing some there, I'm going to put a little bit more silver in and just give it that light tap. And then what I usually do is I turn it over and give it a little bit of a flick, not too hard, but just enough so I can see that I have full coverage, maybe a tiny little bit on this side over here. Okay, and now I'm going to heat that with my heat tool. I'm going to move these out of the way. I'll heat that with my heat tool, and I will speed this up so that you don't have to listen to and watch me. There, doesn't that stamp just look so cool with the black in the background? You're going to pull in your trimmer, and we need to cut this piece down to 1 3/4. We're going to keep the width, but we want there to be 3 pieces that are 1 3/4 wide. So just make sure you don't have your lock on. Go over to 1 3/4, and then you're just going to cut that. And you might need to press just a little bit harder because you are going through that little bit of plastic now. So, which is the embossing powder heated up and melted. And then, so we've got our 3 pieces, and keep them in the order that they were. So you're going to keep them like this. We're going to take this middle one and we are going to put it on top of our piece of copper. So you take that middle one You can use snail or liquid glue. Tear and tape might even be better. When you're gluing on top of the foil paper, I usually find that a little bit stronger adhesive is a little bit better, but for the sake of the video, I'm going to use my snail. So there we have our piece. So I'm going to pull in our stamparatus, and I've already put my stamp onto the plate, and I'm going to place my piece of paper down here in the center. I had this for another item here. I'm going to put my 2 magnets over top, and then I'm going to ink up with some StazOn. So StazOn is going to become permanent on top of our foil, and I'm just going to ink up my black, and I'm going to stamp that. Oop, I'm not going to be in the center there, so I'm going to move my piece of paper a little bit up. So I'm going to move it up here. Again, I'm going to center it along this line here. So this is a good way to use your stamparatus. When you have that grid paper underneath, it makes it so much easier to line things up straight. There we go. That's much better in the center, close to the center anyway. I think it's a little bit low. And pick up. I think I'm going to give it just a little bit more a little bit more ink. Stamp again. There we go. And there's our piece. So I'm going to set that aside to dry. It'll take just a couple minutes on top of that foil paper. So now we're ready to assemble. And one of the things that you want to be sure of is that your marbled piece is all in the right sequence. So I usually go back and I look at the picture here and I make sure that it's matching here. And I can also tell where my copper is going into here and then where my gold is continuing down here. So you want to make sure that you are putting it onto your card in that order. So I've already put some snail on the back of here, and I'm just going to position this so it's centered top to bottom, and so that I have about 1/8 of an inch on this side here. And I'm going to do the same thing with this one. I'm going to leave about 1/8 of an inch, and I'm going to try and center it as much as possible top to bottom. It looks to me like I've fairly centered there. And now for this one, I'm going to put it on with foam adhesive strips. So I'm just going to cut up on some of these, and I'm then going to position them on all 4 sides. Again, do a final check to make sure that you have your marbled piece going the same way. And then that's going to go right over top. And I'm lining up the top of this piece where the embossing is with this one and that one. So I'll try not to get my head in the shot as much as possible. So it's going to go down lower with the copper. I'll fold this so that you can see. So there's your piece. The last step I have now is to take my congratulations piece and also put that down in place. So I'm going to position it, and then I'm going to put foam adhesive strips just underneath. So I'm going to cut these again, just so that they are smaller. If you use your dimensionals here, the dimensionals are not as, the height is different on a dimensional than it is on your foam adhesive strips. So I don't think your dimensionals are going to sit quite the same way. And then we're just going to place it down. So you can place it wherever you like. In the middle, I like it down at the bottom. So I'm going to line up with my left edge here, and hopefully my right edge, well, it's a little bit long, but that's okay. So I'm just press it down, and there's your card. Now this card, unfortunately, doesn't look nearly as good in photos, but I hope that you can really see the play of color and the metallic on it. So this one is the first one that I did. So I have slightly different looks with my metallics, but equally as gorgeous. There you go, all done. I hope this idea gave you a little inspiration and you're going to give it a try. Try it with your colored embossing powders as well as your metallics. I think you'll really enjoy it. I'd love to hear that you did give it a try and how it turned out, and maybe what tweaks you might have made along the way. You can purchase any of the supplies I used for this design by clicking on the links in the description below. And if you live in Canada and you don't yet have a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, I would love to be your gal. You can also find me at www.designwithjo.ca. I post regularly, and it'd be great to have you join in. And if you think you'd like to be part of the Stampin' Up! Community, I have a growing team of creative Canucks here in Canada. We would love to have you join us. Thanks very much, and have a great paper crafting day.